Harper High School, situated on the outskirts of the small town of Millstone, had always been the subject of ghost stories and local legends. Built in the early 1900s, the school had a long history, some of it shrouded in mystery and tragedy. Among the various tales, one stood out, the story of the silent hallway. It was said that students who ventured into this hallway after dark would never be the same again. Sarah Thompson, a senior at Harper High, had always dismissed the stories as nothing more than urban legends designed to scare freshmen. A straight-A student with a sharp mind and a skeptical outlook, she prided herself on her rationality. That is, until the night she stayed late to finish a group project. It was mid-October, and the school was preparing for the annual Halloween carnival. Decorations were being put up, and the air was filled with anticipation and excitement. Sarah and her friends, Jake and Emily, had volunteered to help with the preparations, and they stayed late into the evening. As the clock neared midnight, the others began to leave, but Sarah decided to stay a little longer to finalize the plans for their booth. "I'll catch up with you guys later," she told Jake and Emily as they headed out. "Are you sure? It's getting really late," Emily said, glancing nervously down the dimly lit corridor. "I'll be fine. I just want to finish this up," Sarah assured her. The school was eerily quiet as Sarah worked in the art room. The only sounds were the occasional creaks and groans of the old building settling and the faint hum of the fluorescent lights. She was so absorbed in her work that she lost track of time. It wasn't until she heard the distant chime of the old grandfather clock in the main hall, striking midnight, that she realized how late it was. Gathering her things, she headed for the exit. As she walked down the long, empty corridor, her footsteps echoed unnervingly. She had always found the school to be a bit creepy after hours, but tonight felt different. The air seemed heavier, and the shadows seemed to move just at the edge of her vision. Just as she was about to turn the corner, she heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper. She froze, her heart pounding. Straining to listen, she heard it again, a soft murmur that seemed to be coming from the silent hallway. The silent hallway was an abandoned section of the school, closed off after a fire many years ago. According to the legend, the fire had claimed the lives of several students and a teacher, and their spirits were said to haunt the hallway. Despite her skepticism, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Curiosity got the better of her. She knew she should just leave, but something compelled her to investigate. Taking a deep breath, she turned and walked toward the silent hallway. The entrance was blocked by a heavy wooden door that had been chained and padlocked shut. However, as she approached, she noticed that the padlock was broken and the chain hung loosely. "This is a bad idea," she muttered to herself, but she pushed the door open anyway. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from a few flickering bulbs. The air was musty and stale, and the temperature seemed to drop significantly. As she stepped inside, the door creaked shut behind her with a finality that made her shiver. She walked slowly, her footsteps echoing unnervingly in the silence. The walls were lined with old lockers, their paint chipped and peeling. Some of the locker doors hung open, revealing books and belongings that had been left behind in the fire. The whispering grew louder, more distinct, but she couldn't make out the words. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. There was no response, only the whispering that seemed to surround her. She felt a sudden rush of cold air and turned around, but there was no one there. Panic began to set in, and she quickened her pace, heading for the exit at the other end of the hallway. As she passed one of the open lockers, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Inside was a charred textbook with her name on it. How is that possible? She thought, her mind racing. She had never been in this part of the school before, and yet here was her book, scorched and blackened. She reached out to touch it, and as her fingers brushed the cover, a vision flashed before her eyes. She saw the fire, raging and out of control, students screaming and trying to escape. She saw herself, trapped in the flames, her own screams joining the chorus of terror. The vision was so vivid, so real, that she staggered back, gasping for breath. The whispering grew louder, more urgent, and she realized with dawning horror that it was calling her name. She turned and ran, her heart pounding in her chest. The hallway seemed to stretch on forever, the exit always just out of reach. Shadows moved around her, and she could feel unseen hands brushing against her skin. Finally, she burst through the door at the end of the hallway and collapsed on the floor, sobbing. The whispers faded, and the temperature returned to normal. She looked around and realized she was back in the main part of the school. The silent hallway with its horrors was behind her. The next day, Sarah tried to convince herself that it had all been a nightmare, a product of her overactive imagination and the eerie atmosphere of the old school. But when she returned to the art room, she found the charred textbook sitting on the desk where she had been working. Her name was still clearly visible on the cover. She knew then that what she had experienced was real. The silent hallway was not just a legend. It was a place of darkness and despair, where the spirits of the past still lingered. She tried to tell her friends, but they didn't believe her. They laughed it off as a Halloween prank, a story made up to scare them. But Sarah knew the truth. She could still hear the whispers in her dreams, calling her back to the silent hallway. She avoided the school after dark, but the sense of dread never left her. She began researching the history of the fire and discovered that a girl with her name had died in the blaze. The realization chilled her to the bone. She became obsessed with the idea that the spirits were trying to tell her something, to warn her or seek her help. She spent countless hours in the library poring over old newspapers and records. The more she learned, the more she felt the pull of the silent hallway. One evening, unable to resist any longer, she returned to the school. The janitor, Mr. Grayson, was just locking up. He was an old man with a kind face who had worked at the school for as long as anyone could remember. "Mr. Grayson, can you tell me about the fire in the silent hallway?" she asked, hoping he might have some answers. His expression grew somber. "It was a terrible tragedy," he said. "A group of students and a teacher were trapped when the fire broke out. They never made it out. The hallway was sealed off after that, and most people prefer not to talk about it." "Do you believe the stories about the spirits?" Sarah asked. Mr. Grayson looked at her for a long moment before replying. "There are things in this world we can't explain," he said quietly. "I've heard the whispers myself, late at night when the school is empty. Be careful, Sarah. Some doors are better left closed." Ignoring his warning, Sarah made her way to the silent hallway once more. The broken padlock still hung from the door. She stepped inside, her flashlight casting long shadows on the walls. The whispers began almost immediately, and she followed them deeper into the darkness. This time she was not afraid. She felt a strange sense of purpose, as if she was meant to be there. The vision of the fire returned, but this time she did not recoil. She saw herself reaching out, trying to save the others. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and she understood that the spirits were seeking closure. In the center of the hallway, she found a small, charred box. Inside were photographs and letters, mementos of the lives lost in the fire. She realized that these were the spirits' last connections to the world of the living. Taking a deep breath, she gathered the items and promised to honor their memory. The next day, Sarah organized a memorial service at the school. She displayed the photographs and letters, and the students and faculty came together to remember those who had perished. As she spoke about the tragedy and the importance of remembering the past, she felt the weight lift from her shoulders. That night, she dreamed of the silent hallway one last time. The whispers were gone, replaced by a sense of peace. She saw the spirits, no longer tormented, smiling and fading into the light. When she woke, she knew that the restless souls had finally found their peace. Harper High School moved on from its haunted past, but the legend of the silent hallway lived on. Sarah never forgot the experience, and she became known for her dedication to preserving the history and memories of those who had come before. The school, once a place of darkness, was now a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of remembrance and the resilience of the human spirit.